one more time. Thank you for making the time. And oop. Okay. Good to see you, Matt. All right. Okay. Yeah, we're going to be talking about the debate program today. We got three fantastic debate coaches, obviously speakers with us tonight. We have Matt, we have Valerie, we have Max Williams. Matt has been coaching, teaching for Linky for quite some years. I don't even remember how many years. Maybe you do, or five. Okay, there you go. So he's been coaching with Linky for 5 years. Uh, Currently, he's leading the Linky debate program, and Matt has a lot of tremendous debating coaching experiences. He is going to be talking about debate fundamentals, right? How to start, what need to pay attention in terms of, improving your debate skills. And Valerie is going to be sharing more about debate clubs at your full-time school, right? Valerie has a lot of debating, coaching, debating experiences as well. She coached one of the top Toronto private schools for some years, right? And obviously, she got a lot of observation experiences in terms of how to build a debate club at your school. And she's going to share a lot of that with us tonight. And last but not least, Max William, a former Team Canada member. He will be talking more about the debate competitions, tournaments, Team Canada's. Max, because he has a class to teach tonight, he will be joining us maybe a little past 8. And I'm going to, pass the microphone to Matt to start with. All right. Thank you, Matt. It's all yours.
Thank you very much, Henry. Welcome in, everybody. As Henry said, my name is Matthew Thompson. I am lead here at the Linked Key Debate Program. And I just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. It's always a great opportunity whenever we get to speak to you. Today, I'm going to be taking us through just a little bit about the vision of our program. I know in the audience today, we have some people who are currently in the program, some people who are considering joining the program. So we're going to make sure we have a little bit something for everybody. Today, we're also going to be introducing you to two of our newest coaches to join the team, who we're very excited about, both Valerie and Max. As I was trying to explain to some of my level ones a little bit earlier this week, you cannot have me for all of your classes. Eventually, you will have to trust another teacher to teach you. And so this is a good opportunity to get to know some of the other teachers here. And we're going to look to do a couple of opportunities like this throughout the next semester, bringing teachers into other classrooms, a very team-based approach, getting students comfortable transitioning to a new teacher, not feeling like they're starting over from scratch, understanding that we talk to each other, that when I pass a student off to a level 4 teacher and that teacher has questions about the student, I'm very much available to them. We talk about you a lot more than you think that we do. Okay, well, let's get into this. I teach a large number of our level 1, 2, and 3 classes. So that's going to be my primary focus tonight, sort of what you get for coming to Linked Key. After that, we're going to move to Valerie. Valerie's primary focus tonight is going to be talking about clubs, things that you can do in debate outside of our institution, at your schools, private schools, public schools, etc. Just sort of the opportunities that come to you from debate and how you can make the best of those opportunities. And then we'll have Max Williams come on, and he's going to talk to us about competition. Max Williams is, of course, a former member of Team Canada, so he knows quite a bit about debating at the top level. And then after that, we'll have a section set aside for questions. If you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to put them in chat. We will do our best to pay attention to them, answer them as much as we can. Henry, tonight, are we doing translations or is it just English?
Well, I can do translation. Maybe not every single slide. Maybe once, maybe per 5 slides or whatever you feel you need to take a break, drink some water, just let me know, and then I can do some quick translation.
Of course, of course. Good. If I need a translation, you guys can get a translation. Good. We
Yeah.
understand that English is not the first language of many people in this meeting, so we will be providing translations from time to time. But even so, even with the translation, if you don't understand something we said, tell us in chat. We will happily clarify this for you. Okay, let's get into it. So, foundationally speaking, I believe that there are three primary reasons why someone would consider taking debate or would enroll their students in debate. And as much as possible, we try to make sure that our courses cater to all three of these different types of customers. You will probably find yourself on the list. If you don't, again, we've got a question period. Maybe you talk to me about it afterwards. One of the primary reasons that a student will come to me for either public speaking or debate is that they are shy. This has been exacerbated by the lockdown. A couple of students lost some very important years for socialization, for interacting with teachers, with other classmates, etc. A lot of students, I think, learned in 2020 and 2021 that if they get quiet, teachers will just leave them alone. And that is true in a lot of classrooms. And it's been a very unfortunate side effect. In particular, I think students who lost some of the formative grades, your sort of grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, this is a time when kids are very loud and they sort of learn what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And when suddenly we were in a situation where teachers could just mute everybody, a lot of them just did. And so people had a lot of difficulty sort of learning those self-regulation skills and learning how to communicate with others. This is a foundational life skill. Even if you don't plan to ever go to a debate tournament, you can get a lot of value out of a debate education simply by helping you to extend yourself into a room and trust yourself to communicate in front of large numbers of people or even in smaller environments. A lot of parents just kind of want me to help their kid find their voice. And this is some of the more rewarding stories I have to share with you today, but let's cover the others. The other type of student we get a lot is the complete opposite of that kid. This is a student who loves to talk. You can't get your student to be quiet. They're very smart. They're very inquisitive. They're curious. They ask you lots of questions. They argue with you about just about everything. And you're looking for a way to sort of shape that energy towards a more positive end than just, annoying every teacher and babysitter they've come into contact with. These students excel at debate. They do really well from the word go. They're filling their time. They're giving long speeches. They're coming up with interesting counter arguments. They're challenging teachers on a regular basis. They're a very rewarding student to teach and a very, very powerful canvas to start working on to try to turn them into a very talented, dangerous even, debater moving forward. The final reason that students come to us might have nothing to do with their personality, might have nothing to do with whether they want to talk or not. Instead, tends to be a more parent-driven reason, but this reason is parents are looking for ways to help set their student up for success in the future. And one of the things they hear is that experience in debate looks really good on a university resume. And it does. That's just true. So if that is your goal, we are more than happy to help you build out your resume, participate in academic competitions. We think that debate is a very good skill for supporting other aspects of a resume as well. But in particular, it just looks really nice, especially when you start getting results, especially when we are a top 10 speaker or we're reaching the final round of a tournament or we're winning championships. I do caution you here just a little bit. Debate is it's not an award factory. If you're just looking for trophies, Valerie, how much experience do you have in Model UN?
Basically none.
Okay. Trophy factory. Man, I didn't do that much Model UN. I won a lot of trophies in Model UN. So if that's something you're looking for, both the activities go hand in hand. But if you're just looking to buff up the resume, Model UN is a really good opportunity to buff up some resumes. Debate's a little bit harder to win, But especially if your admissions expert knows what they're looking at when they're reading your resume, there's a lot of really, really good things we can find in debate. So what I want to talk about is how moving through a debate education can help these three very different students all come out with very, very strong results. And so what I really like to highlight is the fact that all three of these aspects feed into one another. If we have a look over here, oh, we have to pick a color now. Look at that. If we have a look over here, there it is. Sorry, I haven't done much Zoom teaching lately. If we have a look over here, when we talk about building confidence, when a student develops the skills and experience to hold their own in any room, again, this student might not be going to debate competitions, but through working with me and other teachers, they become more comfortable in themselves. They learn how to build strong arguments. They know what they're saying is good, is powerful, is persuasive, and they're more confident saying it to others. This experience is going to have knock-on effects. The better a student gets at presenting themselves, at being persuasive, at being funny and clever, at thinking on their feet, the better they're going to do if they ever choose to actually go to tournaments. Tournament experience accelerates their skill growth. I can recall last semester, we had a student who was in level 2, and she was perhaps in the middle of the pack of her class, and she went to a debate tournament and got completely destroyed. She went with a partner who was from an outside institution, so I don't know her partner that well. She was a little bit better in the team, but overall their team did very, very badly. But she went and she experienced it and she competed in a full speed debate tournament. There were members of Team Canada at this tournament. This was a very, very high level tournament. So, of course, she didn't do very well. But when she returned to class, that experience had accelerated her growth by so much that within 2 or 3 weeks, she was the best student in my class. She is now somewhere in level 4, possibly moving to level 5. Valerie may have encountered her by now. And what you see is that experience at a tournament makes you better. As you get better, the next time you come back to a tournament, the better that you do. So if you're seeking results, simply going to the tournaments helps you build out this confidence, helps you get better at these sorts of things, and can help you get better results in the future. So regardless of if you care about the results or not, the tournament experience actually goes a long way to improving these intangible skills, this confidence, this charisma. Obviously, results at a tournament are going to look good on a resume, as we've said, but that's not the only aspect to submitting a strong resume to a university. As you learn how to construct arguments, as you learn how to speak better, your writing skills improve, but so do your speaking skills. Many post-secondary institutions still involve interviews. You also have interviews for UTS and all the various finishing schools, the fancy high schools. They like to do interviews as well. Success in debate can help translate into better presence in these rooms. I want to go back for just a moment because I'm going to share with you just a couple of stories here. All right. So when we think about confidence, I have had students come to me who could barely speak. They were afraid, they were quiet, they were soft-spoken. At home, they're loud, they have personality, they're interrupting their mom, right? At home, they're doing everything the parent would hope that they're doing. But as soon as they're placed into a school environment, it's a complete shutdown. It's complete silence. It is an incredibly rewarding experience to bring along one of these students, to watch them find their voice, to watch them realize that they can communicate with the rest of the world, that the things that they say have value. There's a very special thing that happens in a debate. You are given 5 minutes that belongs to you and only you. No one can take it away from you. No one can stop you. Everybody has to sit there and listen to your speech. They all have to listen to your ideas. They have to take you seriously. There are not a lot of experiences. There are not a lot of opportunities for a student in grade 7, in grade 8, to have the entire room shut up, listen to them, take notes, and pay attention, to take their ideas seriously. Furthermore, there's a bit of a competition aspect to it that can bring out something in your student that maybe you didn't know that they had. In particular, students who are not very athletically inclined, maybe they're not into a lot of sports, they're not into hockey, that sort of thing. This is a really great outlet for that. In my experiences, teenagers like to compete with each other, and this is a very good opportunity for that. Even when you have a student who maybe doesn't take the class very seriously, maybe they're a little bit too cool for it, as soon as we count them in and the round starts, they don't want to lose to the other kids in the room. And suddenly you start to see performances from them that you didn't know was possible beforehand. What I'd like to say about confidence is that this is one of the most important things you can learn as a child and as a teenager. And it's the sort of thing that you can take with you no matter where you go in life. What I've written down here is from job interviews to first dates, life just goes better when you approach it with confidence. When you walk into a room as though you belong there, as though you own the room, as though everybody else in the room is lucky to be in the room with you, people take notes. A lot of schools today reward things in students that we do not reward in adults. We reward kids for sitting there quietly. We reward kids for doing exactly what they're told when they're told, for being seen and not heard. And then they become an adult and we ask them where their ambition is. Why aren't you a disruptor? Why aren't you changing something? Get in there, get in that meeting and show them what you can do. And we do very little in ordinary education to build any of these intangible skills. In fact, most classrooms quash these skills. Debate is exceptional at taking a kid who might just kind of coast by in the background and help them realize that they are the main character of their own story and they should be standing at the front of the room because they belong there. Moving on to charisma. Charisma, again, sort of an intangible skill that comes from this. It's not just about feeling like you belong. That is important, but I've often said that confidence comes from competence. The better you get at something, the more confident you are when you are doing that thing. When you come out of a debate class and you are funnier than you were before, and you can think on your feet, and you can come up with interesting and challenging ideas that other people didn't have, or when you learn how to clean up a mistake on the fly, something that might have frozen you a year or two ago in just embarrassment and humiliation becomes something that you easily just kind of brush off your shoulder and move on with your life. These are the sort of skills that are always going to help you. The ability to persuade others that you're correct, that they should be investing in you, that they should look out for you, they should support you, they should have your back. This is an important skill no matter where you go. Outside of the classroom, this remains incredibly important. This is important in business. This is important in coworker dynamics. There are going to be times when you are going to need someone's help. There are going to be times when you will need to ask somebody for something. And being likable, being able to present yourself in a way that causes people to want to invest in you is a very strong thing to have, and it's absolutely something that we are developing in debate classrooms. Finally, critical thinking. I think one of the easiest things to see about debate is that it really requires you to understand what your opponent is thinking. It's one of the earliest skills that we teach. You start to think about what your arguments will be, and then you have to think about what their arguments will be. On the first day, we tend to have them debate cats versus dogs. And you'll have a bunch of children telling me, no, I love dogs. I could never say cats are better. And when you challenge them to try to think like a person who disagrees with them, you unlock something very important. If you don't have the ability to understand why a person is disagreeing with you, the world is a very loud and confusing place, full of stupid people who vote for dumb, bad idiots who want to do terrible things to your community. And if you're able to pause for a moment and understand what it is that opponent wants, why they want what they want, and how you could perhaps facilitate a way for yourself and them to both get what you want, you can make a lot more progress in life in situations where you otherwise might hit a brick wall. You're all going to end up in a situation where you're maybe working for somebody who doesn't understand you or doesn't care, or you're working with somebody who doesn't understand you and doesn't care. A lot of your students have probably complained to you about group projects. I happen to think group projects are fantastic because they do help you prepare for life. When you hear your bright, talented child come home to you and say, "Why is it that all my group members are lazy and I have to do all the work?" Well, that's kind of how it's going to be, actually. The group projects, they don't stop with school. Learning how to cooperate, not just with someone who is not interested in being there or not interested in being in the group, learning how to get them to give you something, right? To get a little bit out of a difficult partner. Learning how to operate with someone who has a very different personality type is also deeply important here. Earlier this semester, I took my two best debaters in a class and made them partners. And within 4 minutes, they both came to me and asked me to never make them partners again. They're both very smart, they're both very talented, and both of them have to be the boss. There was just no world where somebody else was going to tell them what the speech was going to be. Just terrible partners. Other times, you get a partner who's maybe really good at executing. So you take that partner who has to be the boss, who has to write the whole case, and you pair them with someone who's really rhetorically strong, someone who's very good at thinking on their feet, someone who's really good at rebuttal, maybe something that that planner isn't so good at. And you start to realize that life works a lot better when you can work with other people. This philosophy not only brings you success in debate, which gets you the tournaments and the awards and the university and whatnot, but helps you find business partners when you get to university. Helps you realize that, yes, this is a person I work well with. We can go far. The thing they never tell you about university is that you can't get through it by yourself. I went to the University of Toronto. Valerie, you went to the University of Toronto. You just escaped, right? You got out last year. Congratulations, you made it. You made it. You don't get through that by yourself. You either fail out in first year because you don't know what you're doing, or you forge alliances. You find people who are going to help you. You find people to share notes with you. You share notes with them. Nobody reads all of the books. We split the books into 4 pieces across 4 different students. We read the books, we collaborate. These are all skills that you develop here, critical thinking, that you don't get told in your regular elementary school. All right, that's everything I have for here. Henry, if you wanted to provide a translation, we could go through that now.
Sure. Yeah. Can you maybe go back to which one is your first slide?
Right here, shy, talkative, and university applicants.
OK，我用中文啊，我用中文稍微讲两句，因为我们用中文好像还是更亲切一些。其实我经常听到大家的一些问题啊，其中有一个问题问的蛮多，今天我还听到，就是说我的小孩儿可能不适合 debate，或者不适合这种人文语言类竞赛。那人文语言类竞赛，我们大家都知道，有 debate，有 Model United Nation，有 DECA，有 HOSA 等等啊，mock trial 等等啊。那debate 当然是其中一个最主要的一个竞赛项目。那说到这儿，我多说一句啊，不知道在座的我们有多少人知道这些人文语言类竞赛的区别和共同点是什么？我很快带一下，因为确实很多人不知道，很多人都在问说，什么是 debate，是 mock trial，什么是 HOSA，是吧 DECA，他们到底区别在哪？他们的共同点我们先说哈，他们的共同点是，他们的基础都是 public speaking，就是他们有一个共同的一种通过 public speaking 来做的这样的一种展现能力。我们知道展现一般是2种，一种是口头展现，一种是书面展现啊。那口头展现就是 public speaking， 书面展现就是 writing。在这个地方，其实大家的是共通的，所有的这些竞赛项目，人文语言竞赛项目都是通过 public speaking 来展现。你通过你的非常有效的这种 public speaking 的技能，然后把你需要展现的内容，非常有效的把它展现出去，这是作为一个 debater 要做的工作。那不同的地方在哪里？不同的地方实际上是他们的知识结构是不同，他们所覆盖的或者说他们所针对的知识结构是不同。 不同的。模拟联合国针对的知识结构是 international relation geopolitics。那DECA 要针对的内容是 business，它是一个商务类的竞赛。那 HOSA 是一个 medical science 的 competition，mock trial 是一个 law competition。那 debate 是什么？debate 是我管它叫a little bit of everything，就是可能每一个刚才我们说的这些知识结构 debate 都会涉及到一些。你从人文、从政治、从历史、从经济、从环境、从科技，可能 debate 都会有一些涉及。所以这个是从知识结构角度讲，造成了所有的这些刚才我说这个项目的不同。那我们回到刚才我想说的那个问题啊，其实上也是麦子在讲，就是很多人在说我的小孩不适合 debate，他比较内向，他比较害羞，那怎么他适不适合应该去做这件事情？所以我想说什么？我在很多年之前，我曾经做过一个蛮大的一个 presentation，一个这种算是展现我自己的一个观点。那当然，那个主题是先天学习，先天和后天学习哪个更重要啊？我直接跟大家说结论了，因为今天不是我直接跟大家说结论，结论我是后天更重要。先天当然有很多很多的这种孩子，我就从小打篮球打得好，那个是有天赋的成分，我们不能否认天赋是有一定的这种差别人和人他就是比我跑得快，他就是比我跳得高，呃，这个是一定是有差异的，但是有大量的这个不是我的结论，呃，这个瑞典有一个行为心理学教授叫 Ericsson，跟那个手机一个名字 Ericsson，他有一本书叫《The Peak》，那里面他做了20几年的这种跟踪调查，用了大量的这种事例、大量的数字来分析，最后他自己的结论也是后天的努力是更重要的。经过后天努力，有很多麻烦您关一下话筒好吗？OK，那我们是有很多很多是可以通过后天努力来训练出来。这个地方我想跟大家讲几个小例子，因为最近这段时间，现在是1月份，大概是从10月份开始到现在，这三个多月的时间，我们都很忙。一方面是学校的日常工作，还有一方面忙的原因是因为这个是各个学校的申请的旺季啊，包括本科申请，包括研究生申请，包括私立学校申请。我这2天在密集的做这个 UTS 的 Stage 2的 interview 的辅导。那这些申请，不管是本科也好，还是这种像 UTS 这样的 interview 辅导也好，最后我们都很容易看到一个现象，或者说一个规律，就是说，如果这个学生他练过 debate，或者练过 Model UN，他在整体的这种展现能力上和他的知识结构能力上，就展现出来你会有一种感觉，就是他好像做什么事情都很容易，就你教给他做一个事情，一点就通。我们像辅导一些孩子做 interview，那个 debate 的孩子基本上你讲2句，他马上他就一点就通。这个不是巧合，这个是他平常的这种训练累积起来这种这样的一个结果。那这样的例子其实有很多，你比如说我们有UTS 6升7的学生，他上来给他一个问题，就是 UTS 要求你要讲5分钟。他5分钟能讲得非常的好，而且能够整个的这种 structure roadmap，然后所有的内容的整个的铺开，论点论据，然后还有故事性等等。但是有的这种8升9的学生按道理应该更成熟，应该知识结构更完整，但是他只能讲1分钟，甚至有的时候1分钟都讲不到所以这个其实就是平常一些训练的差别。这个也是刚才 Matt 在讲的，就是说你去学 debate 能够给你带来什么？大家认为说，哦，我能够去能不能拿奖，我能不能进国家队？那个可能在我来看是你的叫做我们叫无心插柳，就是你在真正的这种 debate 的过程当中，它训练你的是你的展现能力，它训练你的是你的知识结构，然后你的展现能力和知识结构搭建好了，你会发现，作为一个副产品，你赢得了很多比赛；作为一个副产品，你被一些所谓的名校录取了。这个其实我个人认为反而是副产品啊。那 Matt 也谈到了 the love to talk 的 university application 啊，这个其实在我们这些 debate 的学生当中，这样的例子比比皆是。但是我想再多说一点，就是有的时候我们的家长喜欢，这个我特别理解啊，因为我个人我也喜欢这样，有的时候经常喜欢做这种叫因果判断。什么意思啊？什么叫因果判断？就是比如说我现在在微笑，大家说你在微笑是因为你突然间想到了今天晚上可能吃了一个好的东西，他喜欢做这种因果判断啊，其实不是，可能我就是没什么原因，我就是在微笑。那我为什么要讲这个？就是每年在大学申请这个发榜之后啊，大家特别喜欢做这种因果判断。就是他看到某一个孩子被哈佛大学录取了，被斯坦福录取了，然后被什么什么哪个名校录取了，然后大家就去做很多因果判断，说哦，因为他做了这件事情，所以被录，哦，因为他去这个什么什么什么什么地被某一个队，然后所以因为这个那个大学就看上他了啊。那是不是这两件事情之间一定有因果关系？坦白讲，不一定啊。那有可能他们是有相关性啊，因为他做了这件事情，给他带来了一个非常漂亮的一个录取的结果，它有一定的相关性。但是是不是真正的有因果关系不一定。可是有一件事情我认为是有，这个是我想今天跟大家分享，也是麦子刚才讲大学申请的时候，他提到了一点点啊，我稍微给他扩展一下，就是其实真正的这些我们所谓的叫头部的这些大学，不管是常春藤也好，还是我们加拿大的头部大学也好啊，他们除了在寻找你的校内的这些很漂亮的 academic performance 之外，他们想寻找的是你的认知水平。就是你的知识结构，知识结构的基础上，你能不能碰到一件事情，碰到一个问题，你知道怎么去分析它，你知道怎么去判断它，你知道怎么去找到解决方案，然后你知道怎么去最后能够解决它啊，这个是他们想寻找。而这些能力，我跟大家坦白报告，不是与生俱来。这些能力，我认为应该说是绝大的比例是后天培养出来。所以我们在这个地方，不是说我们一定要跟大家讲 debate 这个 program 有多好，或者说你一定要来另辟读 debate 这个 program。当然，我们欢迎大家，我们希望所有人都来我们这个地方来学习 debate，因为我们可以给大家提供最好的这种 teaching resources。包括我们有可能多伦多或者甚至是安省，甚至是加拿大唯一的一个真正做这种内容标准化的学校。我们有这么这么这种非常实力雄厚的这些教练团队。但是更重要的是，你的小孩通过这个学习可以锻炼，可以培养他的认知水平，就是刚才我讲的。Matt, can you turn to the next page?
I knew that was going to happen. The second I stepped out of the room to refill my water, I'm like, okay, I hope he doesn't. Oh, next slide. All right, here we go.
All right. So, yeah，我们刚才讲到这个debate 比赛，我个人认为非常非常重要。那比赛当然那个结果，我认为是副产品，但是比赛本身，它对孩子 你参加比赛这个过程对孩子是一个巨大的一个提高，是一个这种你把它说多重要也都不过分啊。有什么原因啊？我很快，因为今天我不是主角，我很快我说2个原因。第一个原因就是每一个人都有赢的欲望。那个刚刚出生的小娃娃，只要他一懂事儿，你去跟他做游戏，他输了他都会哭啊。每个人都有赢的欲望，而赢的欲望可以给你带来学的动力啊。我这个非常重要。那很多孩子学的动力不是靠自我的，很多孩子学的动力是靠父母。这是为什么很多父母觉得自己很累，他觉得教育很困难，他觉得这个，哎呀，这简直是太辛苦的一件事情了，每天要盯着孩子做这个做那个。嗯，应该说你还没有掌握方法。如果你掌握一个好的方法，这个我们讲叫摇把儿啊。如果你起到这个摇把儿的作用的话，那如果大家想知道什么叫摇把儿的作用，我们可以后面可以谈啊，因为这个展开要花很多时间。如果你们有兴趣的话，你们可以把问题写到那个对话窗里头，我后面可以说。就是他们可以自己推动自己，这是第一，就是说他可以产生这种赢的欲望，然后带动他自己去学。第二，在底背的比赛过程当中，他们非常容易产生这种叫见贤思齐的效果。就是我看到一些很优秀的，因为去这些比赛的孩子，通常来讲都是对自我有期许，都是对自我有要求的。所以他看到这个比赛现场有很多孩子很优秀，所以我要跟他一样优秀，甚至我要超过他。啊，这种见贤思齐的这种效果，是我们希望你在 Linky 这样的一个环境当中，你在你自己平常的这个学校的环境当中，或者你在这种比赛的这种环境当中，能够给你带来。这个也，我们再多说一句，这个也是我经常跟很多家长讲，我们所谓的好学校和所谓的普通学校最重要的差别。学校跟学校之间的差别不一定在于师资，而且我认为很大一个程度上就不是师资。加拿大的学校的师资，A 学校跟 B 学校没有差多远啊。我们最好的学校，Valerie teach 过我们最好的 private school Harvard，和我们普通的学校那个师资，我不认为有差，但是那个环境有差，环境有差。我在那个环境当中，我受什么样的人的影响？啊，就是我如果天天跟 Matt 跟 Valerie 在一起，你放心，我的这种知识结构，我自己都会水涨船高啊，一定是这个样子。所以参加比赛，给你打造这样一个环境，然后对你自己底背的这种程度，对你这种自推能力的这种提高，我们先不要去谈结果啊，结果我还是那句话，我认为结果是副产品啊building confidence 非常重要。我今天在做的一个这个面试辅导的时候，那个孩子进来就明显的这个信心不够。我通常很有意思，我通常大概跟这种我不是很熟的孩子见面，比如说做一些什么升学辅导的话，我大概可能3、2分钟之内我就知道他练没练过底背，或者练没练过猫对英文。因为他展现的那个自信心哈是不太一样。所以我们底背的这种自信心啊，带给我们的自信心是，你在很多其他渠道是不太容易获得啊。improving your university resume 这个我不讲了，刚才已经讲过啊。大学寻找的顶级大学、头部大学寻找的是认知能力啊，然后包括你的这种如果有竞赛成绩，然后包括对你的这种interview 面试的这种帮助。OK, Matt, next page. Thank you. Transferable skills, transferable skills to any discipline. 这个其实我刚才已经讲过了啊，就是 debate 的这个 skills 它是 universal，你不管将来做任何一个行业，你脱不开要与其他人去沟通，你脱不开要去把你的观点描述给其他人，你也脱不开要真正的去面对问题，去找到方法，去找到答案， 然后去汇集资源，一起来把这件事情、把这个问题解决掉。那所有这些，其实我们在平常的这种 debate 的学习和训练当中，都会有类似针对性的这种训练啊，就是刚才我们说的怎么去看一件事情，怎么去 analyze 它，怎么去 find the solution，怎么去 negotiate 等等啊。那 Matt 在里面他总结了3个地方啊，就是自信心，然后你的个人的魅力的展现，然后你的 critical thinking skills 啊，就是多角度和多元化的来看待和分析问题。OK，so yeah, I'm done. Who goes next? Back to you, man. Oh, Valerie? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, thank you, Henry, for that translation. I didn't know we're doing translations, but I do know a little bit of Mandarin. I'm terrible at it, but I'll
Okay,
try to,
you can
maybe like
try.
help you out so it's not like that strenuous on you. So hello everyone. My name is Valerie. I was a former head coach at Havergal College, and I've now been since I've graduated from university and I have a full-time job. I've since left the college, but I'm still teaching debate. I'm still very interested in helping students with their debate skills. And today I am going to talk to you about my experience within Havergal and as well as working with other private school universities, like private school debate clubs. So you have a little bit more understanding of how debate clubs work in school. 大家好，我叫彭欣怡，我的中文名字是彭欣怡。我在多大毕业了，但是我在 Havergal 有教过2年，但是之后 OK，我现在还在 LinkedKey 在教 debate，也因为我很喜欢教呃debate，我觉得是一个很好的学习机会。今天我在这里是会跟你们说，学校的 debate club 是怎样进行的。I don't know if that was the right word for it, but okay. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay, so when we're talking about school debate clubs, there is an obvious difference within how it operates from extracurricular schools like Linked Key. It mainly is building a community. We are also we're also still teaching kids how to debate, but we are mainly trying to create a community for students to have a space to chat with each other, to make friends, as well as like while developing public speaking skills that they might find interesting in. So a lot of aspects of what we do is not as it's definitely not as skill based as extracurriculars would be, but instead we're more focused on how do we nurture these kids to be interested in debate. We want to get them interested, to get them started in the beginning. Maybe they will have the initiative to take it to the next step on their own, but we're making it so that their classroom, the club, is a place for them where they can be more relaxed instead of something that is competitive. I've never tried to create a community where they are competing against each other. Instead, we are working with each other to do debate. Actually, I'll finish this part first. So within a debate club, the things that we typically will go through is not only building critical thinking skills, like Matt has mentioned before, but it's also trying to get them to be exposed to the knowledge of the world, to take initiative, to read news, to look at current affairs, like what is happening within the wars in the world, the economy, politics, all that stuffs, to build leadership skills is something I'm going to expand on later on, to be more susceptible to feedback, and also to just enjoy public speaking and debate as they are. 在 在 public school 或者 private school debate clubs 是一个不是一个I'll take that later. Debate club 是一个环境，给学生去放松一下，不是在Actually, I don't know how to say compete against each other.
竞争了，
竞争嘛，
竞争了
竞
，yeah.
对，不是竞争的一个环境，但是是一个可以放松，有多些朋友的一个环境。他们会经常在club 里面谈天，一起看一些新闻，我们一起discuss 学校或者世界发生什么事情，所以是一个比较可以放松的一个环境，不是一个竞争的环境。所以我们在 Havergal 的目标就是可以让学生在learn debate 的过程之中，也可以交朋友，可以在一个很轻松的环境底下享受 debate 的一个过程。I don't know how that was. That felt terrible. Anyway, I'm okay with the slide. Next, please. Matt. Can you put the next slide, please? Hi.
He might be stepping away.
Maybe he's okay. Well, the next slide is supposed to be a bit more. Yeah, okay. Yep. It's So I want to talk a little bit about debate club versus debate classes. Oh, previous one, please. Thank you. I want to talk a little bit about debate club versus debate classes. So obviously, I think some of you might be wondering what is the difference between debate classes, which is something that we typically have in LinkP, versus debate club. So these are the main kind of differences that I have between them. One is definitely more a competitive focused one. Within club activities, we want to like pair students up and we want to develop them and like try to work on their skills as a team, so they can go to tournaments, they can improve from tournaments. Our coaching is actually more like how they work well, like how they work with each other rather than independently. So when in school, students typically have more opportunities to be like closer friends than each other. So what we do is that we kind of, if they have similar levels in debate, they have similar levels of interest, and they are on good terms with each other, we try to see if we can put them together for tournaments, and we would focus on having like this pair for like the semester, see how they do, and we would like, and they would be like closer friends to each other through this experience. If anybody here has a student in Havergal or had a student in Havergal, you probably know that their debate partner is usually the same person. If not, like they had very like irregular changes. We try to put them together with like the same person. So like throughout the years, they have a consistent debate partner. This is a similar trend that I see in other schools as well, not exclusive to Havergal. So that's usually how we operate. We also try to encourage leadership positions. So in different clubs, there's different exact opportunities meaning like a training position or a club head. Sometimes this might be more communications and marketing. These are some common positions that are led by student leaders in school. And if your child is very interested in debate, they are very, very encouraged to take up these leadership positions, and they're able to have transferable skills from taking up these positions. So for example, there are people who are in charge of finance. They will probably be in charge of booking a hotel room for people to go to when they are going to McGill University for their tournaments. They would be in charge of transit. They would organize schedules. All of these are incredibly important when you go to university. And like even right now, as I'm working full time, I'm still using some of these skills that I've learned within debate leadership to try to apply to my career as well. So all of these things, you start really young. It's okay if you make mistakes because you have seniors and you have coaches and teachers to guide you, but it was whenever you are put in a leadership position, you start to get used to being in those positions and being engaged with your club members, making friends, and make sure that this community is uniquely yours. It's also incredibly important. As a coach, there's only so much I can do to make students enjoy themselves within a community. At the end of the day, it's the students that truly make the club. And in comparison to classes in Linked Key, I really, yep. I personally have taught in Linked Key for quite a while now, for a little bit now. And the differences between that is that Linked Key is focused more on individual skills. As like it's once a week you come into these classes, you're not really in pairs or anything. You're focused more on how your student, like your child, really engages with debate. And we tend to be more focused on your skills, your specific skills, and how we could improve yourself. And this is a little bit different than like when we are focused on like two people being together. Your child will usually be paired with different students, try different things that is like that is that's within their classes. They have different strengths, different weaknesses. And like Matt says, like we are trying to be a bit more selective in like how we pair these students, but we want them to try different, like we want them to be paired up with different people because like not only are they like trying to be in different partnerships, but it's also to make different friends. That like fundamentally differs a little bit from clubs since we are trying to apply their skills in a wider range. We want to speak in different positions. We don't want them to always be a whip speaker. We don't always want them to be a deputy leader of opposition, like deputy leader speaker. We want them to try different things to be well-rounded. And exactly what Matt and Henry has talked about before, these classes are for like your student and student only, instead of like we are all growing as a group. So I think the benefits for both areas do exist, and it's a very good thing that like both of them can happen in tandem together. They work incredibly well together. So okay, I'm going to switch to Chinese now. OK， 在学校里面，我们比较专注在我们要一对人在去比赛的时候，他们两个的默契 ，I think so，是怎样的？我们经常会邀请学生去跟其他学生谈天，去在一个优秀的环境里面去交朋友，去一起享受 debate 这个 activity。但是在Linked Key 的 classes 里面，我们就是会专注你们的小孩你们的孩子他们的 debate ability， 不是我们比较小是一队人会整个学期会在一起，但是他们会跟其他学生拍档，如果去尝试不同的东西，如果去improve 他们的debate skills。Okay. Okay. Next slide, please.
Can I add something here?
Of course.
Hello.
Oh,
Oh, I said, can I add something here?
yeah.
哦，
Yeah,
我
go
我
ahead.
我用中文讲啊，因为那个 Valerie 英文应该讲的很全面了，就是我用中文插一句，就是我我见到很多学生很多家长，然后当然大家在不同的 stage 有表现出来一些不同的情况不同的状态，但是这种很多，我很难就一下子现在我们就把它全部都给它描述出来。但是我可能归纳有这么几种。第一种就是说有一些孩子他是属于那种天生就很喜欢 debate，就一上来哇一上 debate 的课他就兴奋，然后我们见过很多学生就是每一个星期跟家里人说他每个星期最盼望的一件事情就是来 Linky 上 debate 课不管这个老师是 Valerie 还是 Matt 还是其他老师这是一种孩子，就是他非常喜欢。然后这种孩子通常来讲，他有两个特点，一个特点就是说，他平常阅读量蛮多的，就是他参加 debate 比赛之前，debate 的这个参加这个 debate 的这个学习之前，他就有相当的一部分阅读量，然后他打下了一定的知识结构的基础。第二个特点就是说，他们不一定是很外向，但是呢，他不惧于表达。他不会说哦，我害怕，我不愿意去展现我的观点，尤其在众人面前展现我的观点，他是可以展现的，这是一种，还有一种，有一些孩子我们看到刚来的时候非常内向，非常的那种 shy 然后 introvert，我曾经见过我们的这个优秀的毕业生，我们不讲名字了哈，刚刚来抵备的时候，上第一节课、第二节课的时候是哭鼻子的，那但是爸爸妈妈很清楚抵备的能给他们带来的帮助，所以有很多那样的孩子，因为爸妈的坚持，他坚持下来，那到今天他们发现哦，底贝给他带来的这些变化。那这样的孩子其实也有相当多数，然后我想说一个很有意思的一件事情，就是I don't know whether Valerie or Man, you guys may agree with me or not, right? Let me say this in English first, and then I'll translate myself in Chinese. I often find this. This is kind of interesting. You can call it a pattern, or maybe um, uh, this is how I see it, right? Sometimes I see successful debaters, they tend to be introvert of their debate stage, right? So if you watch this guy, this girls, if when they are not debating, um, they're kind of quiet, right? The final corner, they go by themselves, or maybe watch their cell phone, or maybe read some books, but they tend to quiet, right? They're not like all over the place. They're boys, right? But once they get on the debate stage, you might see a different person, right? Completely different person. This is how I see it. 我用中文讲 Do you guys agree? Have you guys seen this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Quite often.
yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with this. I think a lot of people, when they when they don't understand how someone who's an introvert can give a speech, it's because they don't understand that a speech is not really a social interaction. A lot of times, introverts are a little bit shy to be around other people, to be engaged in conversations. It's hard for them to sit there and talk to you about a baseball game or something like that. But a speech is a controlled interaction. They're in charge of everything that's happening here. You're the audience. There's no ice breaking that needs to happen, there's no small talk. The audience has come here to watch you give a speech. You have prepared your speech. You stand up and give that speech. You could do that to a million people or to two people. It's the same amount of effort, it's the same level of sort of social interaction that's going on. So yeah, I totally agree that some of the best debaters I have
Let me
met
Let me
are
let
not
me
very good at parties, are very,
let
very
me
quiet
let me
people.
ask you
Yeah.
two a question. Let me ask you two a question. I mean, you both are experienced debaters, experienced coaches, right? Um, uh, between extrovert and introvert, which one is more likely to succeed in debate? 我用中文先翻译一下这个问题。我们 Matt 和 Valerie 在所谓的内向型性格和外向型性格两个来比较的话，哪一种性格他们认为以他们的经验更容易在 debate 当中成功？Go ahead.
I'm inclined to say introverts, just because they tend to be more focused on specific topics that they enjoy. So, for example, I mean, I'm in debate club, so I know a lot of friends who, okay, like they are a political science major and they love debating poli-sci, and they're not as good at like other motions. They're not as good as like philosophy, which is something that I study, so they don't like it as much. But like, you put them on stage and you ask them to talk about poli-sci, they will be very interested and they do really, really well. And this is the same thing with some of my students as well. So that's why I try to do topics that they are interested in, because they tend to listen, they engage with these topics because they're really interested in it. Like extroverted kids, they like to talk and they want to learn about everything, but they are less focused. They prefer to have more social interactions than more topical things. So maybe but I do also think extroverted kids have a natural talent in just being able to fill up the room with a presence, and that's also very also very important for public speaking and debate, like for that presence to be communicated within the room. And
Yeah, I'll speak to the sort of extrovert side of things. I do think Valerie is absolutely correct here about how a kid who's introverted, even an adult who's introverted, is very good at just sort of hitting the target in front of them. That's very valuable. People like that. As manager, I like having people like that on my team who are just like, what's my task? That one? And then they go do the task. Very, very helpful. As an extrovert, I think that there are definitely some situations that we suffer in. When it comes to judging success for a kid who's very extroverted and an adult who's very extroverted, we sort of want to redefine what success means. So the introvert, as Valerie's pointing out, sees the target, hits the target, is sort of in a competition with the other introverts. They know what they're there to do. The extroverts, when I'm involved in something like a social interaction, a birthday party, a board game, whatever it is, my goal is very rarely to actually win the game. Typically, my goal is to make sure that everybody's having a good time. And by that metric, I win quite often. I will lose the game more than I will win the game, but everybody wants me to come back and play next time. Everybody had a good experience, everybody enjoyed being there. The sort of happy warrior who people will happily have a debate with, enjoy, having that argument with them. Extroverts are quite good at, hey, good one. You sort of got me there, like, hey, that was a good move. That's like a really nice skill to have in debate because you're going to lose a lot of debates in your life. I was talking to my students recently, actually, about Valerie and Max. Valerie, Max, and Vedit came up in this conversation. And so one of the things the kids ask a lot is like, who's the better debater, Matt? Who would win? Who would win? And I'm sitting here like, look, I'm a confident guy. We have a couple teachers on the staff who would wax me in a debate. Okay. I haven't been competing for a while. I think I'm real good at teaching. I think I do lots of good stuff. I think debate improves every year. I think debaters get better every single year. And in particular, I think those sort of silent assassin introverts are just like very scary to come up against in a debate. Valerie, you've spent a little bit of time with Crystal. Crystal's another teacher on our staff. Crystal's so good. She's so good and she's so calm and you wouldn't know it. And you'd be like, are you ready for the debate? And she's like, I did okay. And then she just annihilates Everybody. Yeah, the introverts. Very, very scary in academic competitions. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. I'll tell you my opinion. I'll go with Valerie. And I'm very how do I say this? I'm pretty confident that introvert is more likely. But this is my opinion. I'll give you some quick examples. You talk about Crystal, right? We have another debate coach. Her name is Sylvia. Sylvia was our national champion in French debate. He is currently teaching at Linky as well, but he teaches online. She teaches online. Sylvia, she's an introvert, very clearly. And when she first joined Linky like many years ago, right? And I clearly remember, and her parents remember this. Sometimes we talk about this, right? She refused to come. Now, they all agree that debating has brought her a lot of values, right? I mean, I saw there's a question in the chat box from Zoe. She's wondering, a good debater may not be necessarily be good at communication. No, introvert doesn't mean that you're not good at communication, right? Do you think I'm a okay public speaker? I think I'm okay. But let me tell you, I'm an introvert. I can be very quiet, just by myself, right? 我用中文讲一下，就是我们刚才有一个，我想让大家知道这个，就我们想在说什么事情，就是我们想在说，就是作为一个，因为很多家长或者很多学生，他们有一个误解，他们有一个误区，就是说他们认为 debate 一定要是一个特别能说的孩子，特别愿意说的孩子，特别外向型的才可以去 debate，才可以去参加这些像 Model UN 类似这样的课程，这样的竞赛课程。我想跟大家讲的是，不是如果你们看我们很多这些在 debate 方面取得很好成绩的学生，其实他们都是内向型性格。那刚才 Valerie 讲为什么？我自己讲我自己的一个观察，就是内向型性格的学生，或者说那个个人，他更容易沉淀下来。就是说他的知识结构，我们刚才讲的debate实际上真正的核心的部分是知识结构，就是他的知识结构，当他读完书之后，他更容易把他的知识结构能够沉淀下来。那 Valerie 讲他们更容易 focus， 这个我觉得是一样的道理啊。所以debate 并不是我们大家在表面上看到的那种，看大家谁的言辞犀利，看大家谁的语言的技巧更好，甚至有的家长害怕说，我的小孩去参加 debate 是不是将来变成诡辩了，变成每天在跟我这个在家里面在跟我狡辩啊，不会的，如果是那样的话，那说明你给他送去了错误的 debate 班，你给他送去了错误的 debate 学校，他们没有教他真正的 debate。真正的 debate 是关于知识结构，是关于怎么能让他们变得更加 knowledgeable，让他们变得怎么能够更加的知道怎么去做，叫 critical thinking，就是说我怎么能够更去有多角度和多维度的去观察和思考问题啊，这个是真正的 debate。所以，大家不用担心我的孩子不够外向，我不能 debate，或者说 debate 了之后，这个孩子有可能会变得更加的狡辩哈，我们叫无理辩三分，不会的啊。我们 debate 真正培养他们的是展现能力 ，communication skills 绝对是需要的，但是在那个基础上去构建的 knowledge base， 在那个基础上去构建的知识结构。OK，back to you, Valerie.
Yeah, yeah, I'd like to have Valerie back in the driver's seat for another few minutes because I believe we're about to lose her. You're about to leave soon, Valerie?
Well, after Max comes back, I'm
Okay.
just gonna pass the
Okay,
reins
so we
on.
have another few. Yeah.
Yeah, we have enough.
Okay. So if you wanted to answer questions or keep talking, whatever's up to you, we're perfectly fine with
Yeah.
it.
I'll just finish my section and then I will hop right on to questions. All right. Next slide. So this is the area about student leadership that I believe Matt mentioned a little bit, but I'm going to expand on it mainly within the school context. So a lot of it is how your student can get more engaged within the school community. Because I think the common misconception is like, I want my student to win tournaments. And I want them to go. I want them to be very involved and very present within debate, and they're going to win a lot of things. I think that if your student is enthusiastic about debate and they really want to go to tournaments, typically a few ways to be more involved within positions of leadership, or if you just want to go to more tournaments, here are a few ways that you could do that. Firstly, to be more, well, I think it's easiest to say, come to club meetings often. Even if you're just stopping by for a little bit before you have to move on to your next class. I know a lot of students have a lot of like after-curriculars after school. But stop by for a little while, talk to your coaches, talk to other students, say hello, even though you don't necessarily have the time to stay the entire time. Be active to bid for tournaments. So a lot of people want to go to a lot of tournaments, so you really got to raise your hand and be willing to go to these tournaments and be vocal, to like speak up about wanting to go to these tournaments. Talk to your coaches and your club heads to say that I want to be more involved within student leadership. So whoever is, if we have any students among us, and you truly are very interested within like to debates, you can ask how you can get involved. How can I learn skills that would be helpful to me in the future? Can I learn from you? Can I look at what you're doing and maybe I can do it in the future? Something like that. And always, and also important to learn about what positions are open within your student exec team. But the most important thing is never be afraid to practice. Just like in debate class, just like in your classes in Linked Key, we always encourage students to speak. And why is that? Is because you can lose. It's a very terrible thing to say, I understand. But like Matt said, whenever you do debate, you probably will lose more than you win. And every time you lose, you know why you lose because you have your coaches, you have other students, and you have your teachers to give you feedback on where you did something wrong, where you did something that's not as that could be improved. Within this area, within this like, situation where you are where it is comfortable to be spoken, if you are willing to really improve, the most important thing that you can do is to be willing to take the stage, to help other students out when they are struggling, or to be willing to like, I'll try topic today. Or if even if you're not very particularly interested in the topic that we are debating today, I'm okay. I'll speak. If I have to go, just let the teacher know. They will allocate you accordingly. But being willing to raise your hand was like, I'll debate today is a great sign that you will be more involved in the club. So okay, let's just go to the next slide. Yes, and this is a few notes that I would like to leave with you guys about strategies so that you can succeed more easily. It's be curious and be consistent. Curiosity is your willingness to do a lot of these things, to interact with students and coaches, ask questions. even though, hi, I'm not exactly sure what's going on right now. Can you clarify? Can you repeat what you said in the last 15 minutes and be be a little bit more clear? I'm not really understanding. A completely valid question. Very much appreciated if you raise these questions. Even if you aren't sure, even if you have any type of confusion, please ask. Take initiative to ask other people, or even if you're just like being asked questions. When we are teaching classes, very often we were just like, hi, like maybe you have your thoughts. Like, what do you think about this particular topic? What do you think will happen in this particular situation? Being willing to answer these questions, not just asking questions whenever you're confused, is a good sign that you are on the right path to succeeding. And secondly is being consistent. It's I think a lot of students, including myself when I was in university, I'm always struggling to find a good schedule, a good routine, finding what works for me. But it's like every once in a while you can do something like this. It's just try to be you have club activities every Wednesday. I go there for 2 hours or even just an hour, taking notes or absorbing feedback, being like regularly taking notes, even if it's just a line or two about what I could improve next time, and show that you care about debate by regularly raising your hand and saying that I want to debate. All of these things, being consistent, trying, continuously doing it. There is that famous quote about if you do something one time, like if you cook one time, it doesn't make you a chef. But if you cook like 100,000 times, then you probably will be called a chef. It's so that being consistent, being repetitive in what you do, especially if you're interested in something, this isn't limited to debate. It also applies to other things within your extracurriculars. And I think these two are the most important things to carry with you if you're interested in pursuing debate further, both within your school and outside of it. Okay, I can take some questions. I think. Oh.
I got a question. I got a question for you, Valerie. As we all know that you were the head coach at Havergal College. So a lot of students want to take some kind of a leadership role in a school club, like a major school club, like a debate, right? What would be your advice in terms of helping them getting more competitive into those leadership positions?
Leadership positions,
Like
first it depends on what kind of leadership positions your institution offers. In Havergal, the leadership positions are quite limited to, well, there's only 2 club heads, and because the coaches take a more larger role within the club structure. But for other clubs, such as like public schools, like Woodlands High Schools, they have a larger variety of club heads and executives. So all of them, so they have probably somebody who handles transit, like transport and like hotel bookings. Somebody's in charge of training. Somebody's in charge of publicity. Somebody's in charge of all of these things. If you're interested in like any of these positions, the way you can like show yourself to be, I think first and foremost, it's always make your name known. Make the people who are in existing leadership should remember your name. And how you do that is to talk to them. Like introduce yourself. Go to tournaments, ask questions about anything that you don't know. They're always welcome to answer your questions. If they don't know anything, then they will probably pass you to somebody who does know the answer to. But making your name known is a huge advantage. And secondly, it's to be engaged with the material that you're given. So it's like being active on, if you want to be a social media exec, you should be active in like probably active within the social media like area. If you want to be more in charge of training, you can probably ask whoever is teaching. It was like, I have some ideas. Can I run them by you? And I was like, I also want like, or anything that you personally want to be seen to be taught in the classroom, you can make those suggestions too. Make yourself known that you are interested in this position and you have something new to bring to the table. I think it's always good for students to push for something that it's new, innovating, and something they're personally enthusiastic about. So all of these things to show initiative, show creativity, a good way to push yourself to that role of student leadership.
Great. Thank you, Valerie. I know you need to leave soon. Maybe let's get to the questions first, and then when Max joins us, we can get to Max's presentation after we take those questions. There's a question from May. How can kids enhance their debating skills outside of tournament? Any recommended practice?
Watch the news. I love telling kids this. So on my Instagram, I have like actually maybe 16 different news sources. I follow news. Well, I'm from Hong Kong, so I have like the South China Morning Post from Hong Kong. I have like the BBC News, the CNN, CBC, NBC. Okay, there's just all of them. But like any type of news source, I just have them there. It's quick, it's easy, it's digestible. Something you can do as parents is that you can just watch the news during dinner time. Just have it play in the background and maybe talk to your kids about like these things. My dad, I tell my friends this all the time, but it's like my dad always tries to teach me about crypto and the trends around the stock market when we are having dinner. This started when I was 12. I've been listening to his stories about why didn't I not invest in Tencent when I was younger, and I'm like, okay, Dad. And the next one's Tesla. I hear you. Things like this. So like your curiosity as parents also translates to your child. I remember what my dad told me since I was 12, and if you as parents are interested in any of these worldly affairs, don't hesitate to annoy your kids. It's just like that brief amount of dinner time that you have with them. You can like tell them about your day, what you think about the world, and engage them in these skills. Obviously, it'd be nicer if they are personally reading these news sources. Every morning when I get ready, like brush my teeth and everything, I have a podcast of the Global News podcast by the BBC News. I just play it. I just put it on my bathroom counter and I brush my teeth and I wash my face. And I listen to the news that happened the day before, and that's how I start my day. Obviously, I'm not asking everybody to do that. I feel like everyone has different routines, but integrating bits and pieces of news into your daily life is probably the best way for you to improve your debate skills. Because that's what it is. You debate about current affairs.
Yeah. I've got two things to add on to that. One is I really liked what Valerie said about just talking to your kids around the dinner table, just about adult things. I think a lot of people underestimate children. That children hear more than you think they do. They understand more than you think they do. And they're sitting there trying to put together their view of the world, usually with an incomplete picture. And the more time you spend just talking to them like an adult, the more time they will start behaving like an adult, and the faster they will start understanding the rest of the world as an adult. I have a very clear memory of being 10 years old, looking at the cover of Maclean's magazine, and asking my grandmother how Jean Chrétien can possibly improve healthcare and cut taxes. that doesn't make any sense. And she said, he can't. That's why he's going to lose the election. And so we had a conversation about it, and she turned out to be mostly right. He resigned before he could lose, and Paul Martin ended up eating that loss. But yeah, it was an interesting moment, a formative moment for me. If your kids hate the news, if you try out the news and they're very resistant to it, this is not just a phenomenon around children. There's plenty of people my age and Valerie's age who are like detaching from the news. It can be kind of depressing. It can be kind of too much. Especially when, I was thinking about, listening to a podcast, brushing my teeth. The last couple months, Valerie, it's been a lot of like, okay, and what place got bombed today? Like it's been a lot of that. And so news is great. People should absolutely integrate with the news. If you're having difficulty with that, fiction is also very strong. Whether they're listening to it on an audiobook or a podcast, less so watching it. Watching it's a little bit passive. Listening, it tends to be a bit better because we're trying to speak, we're trying to take notes. But watching can also be good. Reading is the best. If you have kids who are reading, if your kids are in grade 10 and they're reading, you have done a phenomenal job as a parent. Things are going very, very well for you. So I really try to emphasize this. When a parent comes to me and asks, what should my kid be reading? Really, my answer is anything that they're willing to read. So whether they're reading, a fantasy novel or a science fiction or an autobiography of somebody, it doesn't really matter to me. If someone sits there and they're reading, The Lord of the Rings, there's very high prose in it. It's very well written. The people are giving inspirational speeches. If they're reading, it's Edgar Allan Poe's birthday. If they're reading Edgar Allan Poe, right, he speaks with such accuracy of language. He's just superb. And when they're reading good quality writing, this translates into them writing better, them having a better, more active vocabulary, and it does improve their speaking ability. So read, be engaged with the news. These are absolutely great things to do. It's less about structured practice. At a certain point, it does become structured practice. When we're talking level 5s, level 6s, you're recording your speeches, you're listening to your speeches, you're watching online rounds and giving speeches as though you were in the round. But at that point, there's not much you have to do as a parent. They're either doing it or they're not. We gave one of these a little less than a year ago with Hao Ni, another member of Team Canada. And one of the points that Hao made that really resonated with me was that she said, you either love it or you don't. And you get to a point in debate where if you love it, you have to do a lot less support as a parent to help them go. You just kind of have to facilitate what they want to do. You're not trying to convince them to do something anymore. You're trying to help give them the tools to pursue what they're passionate about.
All right, so let's move on. Quickly, just go through those questions. And question about difference between online and in class for debate. I mean, the difference is very very obvious. Online is less interactive. If you live close by, like in town, I would personally recommend in person, right? But if you live in Montreal, then you got no other choices, right? You have to do online, right? Or maybe during the COVID pandemic, we got no other choices. Online has to be the only one. But otherwise, right, I would think in person should be more effective. Okay, let's take one more question, and we'll get Max to start his presentation. The question is from Karen, actually.
Yeah,
Karen
I
asked.
feel like
think
we've
how we should-
answered.
Yeah, we should split this one up.
Yeah, let me read it first. For beginner,
Go ahead.
for
I'd say the
beginner,
third and fourth, we kind of covered it, but the first
did?
two we can cover. Because the third and fourth is about like amount of reading, and it's also like how as parents we can support children. And I think we covered it quite a bit in our previous questions. So I think the first two is more what we should focus on.
Sure. The first question for beginners, how many tournaments should they practice each year, considering the time and cost investment associated with them? I would say as many as you can. I don't know your cost, your budget. I have no idea, right? But all that factors aside, if you could send your kids to as many tournaments, I think it will be most helpful. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I was actually going to
Really?
mention this in relation to online debating. Online debate tournaments tend to be significantly cheaper and easier to get to. There is absolutely still a benefit to learning how to debate online. It's sort of like a different discipline. So you will have access to tournaments in Europe, access to tournaments in America that might cost a couple $1,000s to travel to normally. Now you can go there for just a reg fee. So there is, I think, some reason to continue to debate online because there are some online tournaments that are just online tournaments. A friend of Linked Keys, a friend of ours, Jin Zhou, ran a tournament recently. It was the Avatar debate tournament, and half of the motions were about the television show and the Fire Nation and the Airbender and all that good stuff. And it was a really cost-effective tournament that just would not have been able to exist had he not been able to utilize online formats and that sort of thing. But yes, we always do say as many as you can. Obviously, choose within your own means and prioritize. So if you're looking at a tournament to McGill versus a tournament to Harvard or Boston, one's going to be significantly more expensive than the other. Maybe you want to hit a couple of local ones. We're very fortunate for where we live in Southern Ontario. There are a lot of very high quality tournaments within driving distance, so you don't need to take hotels. So it makes things a lot easier. But yeah, generally speaking, we say the more the better. Maybe not like 3 in a week. Maybe space it out a little bit. But yeah, we find that up until, I don't know, tournament 10, tournament 15, like we're still seeing significant improvement in students every single time they go. Last time I asked a class of students, how many tournaments did you go to? When we got to Henry's daughter, Angela, she couldn't count. She had been to that many tournaments. And that was one of the main reasons why she was the best debater in that classroom, because she had more experience at, as I said earlier, a full speed tournament where everybody around there is trying their hardest to beat you. And we just can't, we do our best, but you can't replicate that in a classroom. You can't replicate 120 other students around your age all trying as hard as they can to be better than you. Like that sparks something inside of students.
By the way, Valerie is Angela's the most favorite teacher, coach. Uh, that's for sure. All right,
I
let's go to.
do want to say one thing. As many tournaments as we can is a great way to just like encourage students to go. But I would say stop at 2 a month, because every time after a tournament, you're going to have losses. It's unless you are like Team Canada, like Max William or Haoni, you're probably going to incur a lot of losses. And it's not, and like for students in that age where you are grade 7, 8, just starting, while it's great, like I definitely encourage them to go participate in tournaments, but like they also should have some time to understand, to digest what they did and how to improve. They should go to class next week and it was like, hi, I went to this tournament last week and I did really, really bad at this housing motion. I don't understand what's going on. And like throwing them back into a tournament right after isn't going to help them as much. So I would suggest like at least a week's break between them. So I that's the only thing I would say is like every time after tournament, give your child some time to breathe, some time to reflect, some time to consult with their teachers. But if they are at a skill level where like Matt said, they are voluntarily going to tournaments, by all means, if they're able to handle it, they should go. I think that's my opinion on it.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. I think this is a quick follow-up. Valerie, maybe you can get this one. How do you assess progress after each tournament? Is achieving better results in the subsequent tournament an indicator of improvement? What if there's no significant improvement after each tournament? Are there any other ways to assess their progress?
The easiest way, personal, it's not through speaker scores, which is basically a published list of judge rankings, because every judge judges differently. So I don't think that's an accurate assessment. the best way to do it is, firstly, if that student themselves feel good after their speeches, they're comfortable. It's like, I did a good speech. Out of the 5 rounds that I've debated, I feel good at 3 of them. And the next tournament, I was like, I feel good at 4 of them. That is a symbol of improvement because you are now more confident. Being confident, as Matt has said in like way before, is a very crucial factor towards improvement in public speaking because that's really what you have. The second thing I would say, something that's more maybe applicable towards parents, is about your student, your child's willingness to engage in debate. Do they want to keep moving on? Indication of improvement doesn't really come substantially. Like if we are actually going to get into it, I'm afraid it will get a little too technical. Like maybe if your student asks better POIs or they are able to do framing more effectively. I don't think these like mean too much to you, but instead it's like their willingness, their comfortability towards tournament, and it's their if you see them willing to sign up for another debate tournament, or if they're willing to like search up news or listen to podcasts or read anything that's pertaining to debate, this is a good sign that they are like being more interested. They're taking better notes. If you look at their notes after a debate round and like what they have noted down, look at the feedback they've written down by like from coaches, all of these are indicators about like how they're improving, because all of these are indications that their willingness to improve has increased. I wish I have a better answer for you. Maybe Matt, you can kind of supplement this, but for me, this is kind of like the main thing.
All right.
Yeah, I wanted to hear from you on that. I actually like going technical here, so if you have further technical advice that could be useful here for some of our debaters. We have a couple level 3s and 4s here in this chat, maybe some higher who I haven't recognized yet. But one thing I'd like to add for debaters, obviously you're taking notes during the speeches, you're building your own speeches. That same notebook you should be using to write down the feedback that judges gave you, so you can look back on it at a later time. There's a moment that occurs sometime around the reason for decision, but there's a moment that occurs after you finish the round and before the judge has given you feedback. This is a really good time to write down what you think you did well in a round, what you think you could have done better in a round. Just 20, 30 seconds of like personal reflection, great rhetoric, bad example, really good POI response, just something like that. And then listen to what the judge has to say to you and see if that stuff is lining up. If you and the judge both think your example was trash, that means that you're fairly good at understanding what weakness occurred in your speech and what you need to change in the future. If you think something was great and the judge tells you it's terrible, now you've got a question to ask yourself. Was that judge not paying attention? That is possible. Or do you have to recalibrate the way you view your own speeches? I have many young debaters who are incredibly confident and not quite good yet. And there are a lot of debaters who get caught in this space around level 3, around sort of grade 8, grade 9, where they can come up with a lot of arguments, but they don't have a quality control mechanism yet, and they're not good at figuring out which of their arguments is a good one and which one is going to actually make their speech weaker. So for these debaters, it's very important that they pay attention during feedback and they track that feedback from tournament to tournament. Because as Valerie points out, yes, there should be some recuperation time. If you're just throwing yourself at the wall over and over and over again and you're not getting better and you're not getting better results, you need to be paying more attention to your feedback. You need to be looking to find ways to intentionally grow after these tournaments.
Right. Thank you. Valerie, I know you have another commitment. We'll let you to take off. Thank you so much for making the time. And
No
yeah, good night. I'll see you next time.
All right. Good night, everybody. If there's any more questions that you would like to ask me, feel free to reach me through Henry or Matt. And
Thank you,
Max,
Valerie. Thank you.
Valerie.
hand it out to you.
Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Hi, Max. Oh, guys, we're not done yet. We just got Matt. We
Max.
just got Max here.
Uh-oh.
How you doing,
Hi,
Max?
hello everybody.
I know
I'm
people
doing.
started leaving. They thought we're done. No, we're not.
No,
We're just
Shirley's
getting
coming back
started.
in.
The
Yeah, okay.
important guy is just here. All right, Max. It's all yours. Matt, can you flip the page? Okay, there you go.
Thank you. Hi. So I guess this is my first introduction to probably most, if not all of you. My name is Max Williams, as you can hopefully see from the Zoom title card. I'm just starting to work at LinkKey this winter semester, but I've been coaching for about 2 years now as a debate coach. I've been debating for coming up on 8 years, which is a scarily long time when I think about it. In my high school career, I was on Team Canada. I represented Canada at the Online Worlds in the Netherlands in 2022. And then in my final year in 2021, I was also the British Parliamentary National Champion, both as a team and a speaker. So I've done a lot of this debating thing, and that's why I guess my portion of these seminar is more focused on competition. So I'll try to talk a little bit about Team Canada, the process of trying out how to get on the team, because I know that's something that, especially as you get a little bit older towards high school, this is something a lot of kids want to work towards as a goal. And I'll talk a little bit about how I'll integrate my experience with the team more into the classroom. So we'll start with the I think trying out is the next slide. Okay, yeah. So we'll talk about the tryout process specifically in just a second, but I think there are a few worthwhile tips that I wanted to give for anybody thinking about trying out. And I think the important thing to remember here is, even if it seems like a long way away from a place where you have a chance to make the team to represent Canada at Worlds, working towards a goal is something that's really helpful in debate. And it's something that I noticed was really nice about being on the team, is that participating in one tournament every weekend, a few tournaments every month, it can tend to leave you feeling a little bit unmoored, as though that the performance at one tournament is good, the performance at the next tournament is bad. What are you driving towards? What are you working towards at the end of the day? It can be a bit unclear, and that can be damaging to motivation. So if you want to set a clear goal for yourself, I mean, you could aim high and try to get on the team, but at least to participate well in the qualifiers, I think, is a reasonable standard for somebody with a level of dedication, somebody receiving coaching. I think that's something you can aim for. So in terms of getting on the team, I have 4 recommendations here. The first recommendation is, I think, probably the most important one, and it's cultivating a unique selling point. So this is something that I talk about at the bottom of the slide, but when you're thinking about Team Canada, it's beneficial to separate out the achievement of making the team from the achievement of winning a major tournament or performing very well at a major tournament. When judges are looking at your speeches, they're comparing you in a very raw way to the other speakers in the round, and they're assessing you holistically, right, on how well you spoke, on how convincing your case was. And this leads debaters to believe that what matters at tryouts is just being as good as possible. And obviously, that's a big part of it, right? Being very skilled is a help to your chances. But what the coaches are trying to do at qualifiers is they're trying to select a team that works well together, which means that it's much better to take somebody who knows a lot about the world but isn't very good at discerning which arguments are strong and which are weak, and add them to a team of people who do have, as Matt said, that quality control mechanism, rather than taking, 8 all-rounders who don't really have anything to set them apart or contribute to the team in the own way. So I'd recommend early on trying to cultivate your unique strengths as a speaker, whether that's background knowledge, as it was for me, whether that's stylistic flair, whether that's a sense of strategy about what makes sense in a particular round, whether that's being just able to generate and create arguments that are persuasive and convincing and basic in a short amount of time. Whatever it is, right, work on what you're strong at and let that shine. I think that's a much better strategy than what we tend to refer as homogenizing, right? Trying to be like other speakers, trying to imitate or ape them, which is obviously helpful to some extent, but not necessary. I do not know everything. I was a high school kid. I just knew a lot for high school. Being a team player, right? So this is another big thing, and it's something that we kind of lose sight of sometimes when we're competing for something that's really important to us, working together well with other people. And I think a thing that is beneficial for its own reasons, but also beneficial if you want to make the team, is really trying to debate with as many partners as possible earlier in your career. And that's important because you need to learn to work with a diverse range of other people, especially on Team Canada, people with strong personalities and strong opinions, if you want to be successful in this qualifier. Because it's not something that you can go into with your best friend that you've been debating with for 5 years. You have to learn to work with new people. And obviously, right, that's beneficial for other reasons, right? Every speaker is different. There are things that you can learn from every speaker in terms of things they do well that you can try to learn from, and things that they do poorly that you don't want to imitate. So I think that's a good recommendation on its own. The third thing is obvious, but something that seems commonly missed. If you really want to make the team, you need to take a World Schools class. You need to be self-teaching world style if that's something that you think is more feasible for you. Not knowing the style, not being able to deal with an hour-long prep, which is something that really differentiates world style from something like British parliamentary. That's something that really hinders your chances, I think, early on. And I was fortunate in that I was able to participate at a less competitive provincial qualifier in Alberta and get some experience before I went up to the national level. But if you're in a province like Ontario, where obviously the competition is incredibly fierce right from the get-go, you can't really afford to be learning the style on your feet, kind of like I did. And then finally,
Spend
and I
a
think this
moment
is the,
to
yeah.
talk to them about world styles. We're in a room of mostly BP kids here, so if we
Oh,
can just
BP kids, okay.
define that term real quick, maybe for a minute or two. Thanks.
For sure. So with world style is its own debate style. You're not going to find it at the tournaments in the circuit, right? The local circuit we call very often, although they're here and there. World style is impromptu like BP in that you don't know the topic beforehand, but it's much longer in terms of preparation. It's an hour-long preparation instead of 15 minutes. And it's also deeper in the sense that more people participate. So on a world team, you have 3 speaking members, 3-on-3, but you have 2 additional members that are able to help in prep. So instead of a BP format where you have a 15-minute prep about a topic and then 2 team members contributing to a case, here in Worlds, you've got 5 people contributing over an hour. So that means that, some of the skills I've talked about are much more important in Worlds than BP. So working well with a team, right? Managing 5 people's contributions to this collaborative effort, that's something that really matters. Additionally, being able to handle an hour prep, right? Not just sitting there kind of twiddling your thumbs after 30 minutes because you're so used to a 15-minute period that you don't really know how to deepen arguments or develop a case beyond what you can get to in a short period of time. So those are things that you have to practice to be good at, like anything, and they're things that are particular to the world style. Should I be taking questions right now? There are some questions in chat.
No,
We'll
take
do
them
the
afterwards.
question
Okay.
at the end. I'll do the
That makes a
question.
lot of sense. Okay, great. So that's world style. Hopefully that makes sense. And then the last important thing that I think is worth considering is teachability. So the idea here is when you are at the qualifier itself or before the qualifier, taking feedback and listening to feedback is something that is looked for really highly. And I think going back to what we were talking about, before I started speaking, about writing down what your judge said, taking down your own notes after an RFD, one thing that I think is uniquely beneficial with classes that isn't something you get so well at tournaments is an environment where you don't really care about the result. So in some ways, right, practicing in a safer place in a classroom where you're not competing to win a tournament or anything, what that lets you do is take risks. So some speakers, for example, really struggle with efficiency. So one really helpful drill for them is to give a speech in less time than they're actually allowed to try to fit their ideas into a smaller and more constrained space. Now, it would be crazy to do that in a tournament setting. It would be crazy to do it because you'd be handicapping yourself at something you care about. And that's something that you can do in a class and get feedback on in a class that you can't do at a tournament. That's something that will help you at integrating feedback and selections, is be willing to be experimental and to take those risks that will help you get better in the long run. So that's my advice there. We can move to the next slide. So I'll be quick with this one. This is just some basic information if you're interested about how the actual process of applying to the team works. You can always, I assume this slideshow will be posted after, look over it yourself. It probably doesn't benefit from me speaking to it too much, but very generally speaking, there's a provincial selection process. In some places, it's a tournament. Most places, I think. Sometimes with pre-screening, sometimes it's open to everybody. And typically the 3 best speakers from this provincial tournament advance to the national qualifier. And then if you don't make it through the provincial selection, there's also an alternate application process where a few very, very good people who didn't make it through their provincial process compete nationally to get a spot at that national qualifier. So that's the initial level. So in Ontario, there are always 3 people who are selected from this qualifier to advance. Then the national selection process basically mushes together all of these people, so 3 people from each of the provinces, at least with a live debating scene. They compete in a 6-round qualifier tournament. They all do an interview with a member of the CSDF who runs these high school tournaments and administers them. And then an application form where you talk about your grades, your debating accomplishments. And then these 3 factors are evaluated together with probably stress going towards the performance of the qualifier to decide who advances. And then post-selection, the team will be composed of some amount of people who have returned from last year, so people who made it on in grade 11 who are coming back for grade 12. They'll select a new pool of applicants. So there were 8 in my year. Sometimes there are more than that, maybe 10 or 11. And then in December, there will be a 5-person team competed to represent Canada at Worlds. And then the rest of the people will be kind of devoted to supporting that team moving forwards. So hopefully that process makes sense. We can move to the next slide. So I was going to talk a little bit about my experience on the team, but this seminar is intended to end at 9, right?
Henry, your
No,
thoughts?
it's okay. Yeah, yeah, that should be fine.
Okay,
Tell
I
us
can
about
go
your
over.
experience, Max.
I can tell about my experience a little bit, but I'll be a little bit brief just out of respect for people's time. And I go over a lot of this in the next slide anyway. But I think my experience with the team was really rewarding in a way that I think a debate even outside of the team has the potential to be rewarding, where I think that I already mentioned the one benefit of the team is giving you this sort of goal towards where you're going to a tournament and it's not just about the tournament, it's not just about your performance there. It's about how does the tournament help you learn in preparation for this event that's coming up much later, which is WSDC, the World's Championship for high school debaters, which is what Team Canada is designed to try to compete at. So it's really beneficial to have that sort of long-term perspective and also the experience of kind of growing together. And I know I just said earlier in your career, take as many partners as you can. I think equally important when you are getting to the stage of your debating experience where competition matters, you're trying to perform very well. It's really nice to have a consistent partner. In this case, I found it beneficial to grow with other people, right? To see them improve as I improved, to learn from them, learn from what they were learning about, learn to work with them better. That collaborative aspect was something I found really important. So especially if you're getting into high school, I think finding somebody who works well with you, that you want to continue to spend a huge amount of time on the weekends with, is an important part of getting better and also enjoying and sticking with the activity and getting the most out of it. But additionally, right, in addition to the competitive aspect, competing and having fun in that way, debate is just a great social mixer. It's a great activity. You meet lots of people, not just random people, but people who actually care about ideas, care about arguing with each other, who are ambitious and motivated and driven and are going to do cool things in the future. And you do, I know it's corny to say, like make lifelong friends. Like I was just visiting with Anushka earlier today. She was my teammate in 2022, and we talk pretty much every day up until now. And that's an experience that debate, like any competitive activity, can give you, right? It can give you friends that you bond with through competing that you can rely on for the rest of your life. And I think that's a really special part of being on the team, a special part of having a long-term partner, and a reason to pursue debate as an activity, I think. Of course, I think another important part to talk about the experience with respect to is stress, right? So stress is something that affects all debaters who care about their competitive results, probably affects people a little bit more when they're, I don't know, staking their self-worth on something like making a very exclusive team or winning a very competitive tournament. And I just wanted to say that I think one advantage I really had at making it onto this team from a province that didn't at the time and still to some extent doesn't have as well developed a debate circuit as Ontario or British Columbia was, I think I benefited from not being as concerned with the results of what I was doing, the result of the qualifier, provincially, nationally, the results of the tournaments I was going to. And that let me take on an approach that was more action-oriented, which is to say, I cared more about the speeches I was giving. What I was saying correct? Was it logical? Was I making errors that I should be correcting? And I cared less about the fact that, maybe people were beating me into a pulp because they had been coached before, or they just knew things that I didn't know. And not only did that let me improve more, which is of course important, it also made me, I think, have a healthier experience with the team than many of the people who I was on the team with. And so I think that's something to keep in mind, right? Which is at the end of the day, the only benchmark for your improvement is yourself, and you should try to keep that in mind, right? The only person that walked in the same shoes as you was your past self, and if you're better than you were today, than you were yesterday, then that's something to be proud of, regardless of where you fit in on the speaker scores or the rankings or whatever else people care about these days. That was my experience. I wanted to talk a bit about that. The last slide, I think, is the most immediately relevant, though. So in the classroom, I think that as a teacher, I was shaped a lot by my experiences on Team Canada in a few ways. I think the most important way is in regards to teaching methods. So as I kind of alluded to a second ago, I think that my experience with the team was very unique because when I joined Team Canada, I had never received paid coaching in my life. I had no idea what any of the jargon, like people were saying the mechanisms, symmetric, comparative. I had no idea what any of that meant. The extent of my competitive experience was tournaments at gymnasiums at junior highs in Edmonton, where I grew up, and sometimes I would go to BP Nationals and do very badly, and then be very confused about why I did badly. So that was my experience before I made the team. And I think that starting from literally nothing, like no jargon, no technique, no coaching, completely unrefined, has really given me an experience of the coaching process, which I would say is fairly unique. And I think that the thing that helped me the most was the approach that my coaches, Brent and Arslan, who are incredible coaches, took with me, which was a very piecemeal strategy. And what that means is one thing that I think debaters and anybody trying to get better at anything struggles with is you have a vision in your head of what you want to be. Usually it's somebody who is doing very well at the thing you want to do well at. And at the end of every round, you're just kind of like, I don't know, kicking a can. You look dejected and you're like, how do I be more like this person? Oh, I need to make better arguments, have better responses, need to read 1,000 books a day, something like that. And the problem with having a goal like this is not that it's wrong to want to be better, but that just generally wanting to be better is not specific enough and not manageable enough to make you better. And so what really helped with me is I was such a basket case that we really had to take things one step at a time, right? So step one for me was, Max, how do you make an argument that doesn't have basic logical flaws? Let's start there. And we start with that skill. And we start giving me the opportunity to make some claims. And at the end of feedback, the coaches will say to me, Max, did you think about this, right? This kind of invalidates everything that you thought was true in this round. Why didn't you think about that? And I was like, why didn't I think about that? And we work on that for a while. And suddenly, after a few weeks, I can make these basic arguments about as well as anybody. And really breaking this improvement down, piecemeal, do this thing for this amount of time. Okay, you're better at that. Let's move to this slightly more complex task. I think it made me better, faster, and in a way that allowed me to understand the individual skills that I became good at in a way that was much better than just hoping to become better and practicing a lot. And I think that's an approach I really like to carry into the classroom. So when I do classes, one thing I really like to do is try to carry feedback from students across classes. So I mean, every motion is different, every debate is different. Students will do things well and things badly in one debate, and the next week they'll invert them. And I think a really crucial part of coaching is trying to find a common thread, something that is problematic week after week, that's consistent and can be isolated and worked on. And then the second part is isolating and working on. So giving students recommendations for things they should try in their next speech in class to try to work on and improve, and focusing the feedback on these areas that can get better, that a student can notice themselves improving in, and then feel like their effort means something. So that's something I learned from the team that I thought was very valuable that I definitely want to bring into my classroom. And I try to do that when I coach. The second benefit is just in terms of resources, right? I spent, at the end of my time with Team Canada, I was doing one world style debate a week. I was doing one spar in the world's format a week. In addition to my individual practice, so, looking at tournament results, going over motions, in addition to whatever I was doing with my high school partner on the BP circuit, in addition to spars, in addition to practice tournaments and competitions. So I was probably parsing about 3 to 4 motions a week. And what that means is I really know what this activity is about. Like I know the good speakers, I know the good videos you should watch if you want to imitate a really good skill. I know the drills that you should do if you want to improve at a particular thing that you're doing badly at. I know the things that explain pieces of knowledge, things like finance or international conflicts, in a way that's accessible to debaters that are younger and need a surface level understanding that they can use when they argue. These are things that I just have, and I think that they're really beneficial to bring to the classroom, whether it's in homework or in lecture. And then finally, and this is related, I just have a lot of familiarity with the activity. So I didn't, well, I kind of alluded to this again in my introduction, but I didn't stop debating when I graduated. I'm still an active university debater. And a lot of my students have been active on the high school circuit in the past as well. And in addition to my own experience, what that means is I know the opportunities that are available, right? So I can tell you, if you want to pursue TC, here's what you should do. Here's where you need to sign up. I know the tournaments that are reputable, and I know the ones that aren't. I know what motions people tend to like to set. A lot of the motions that are being set in Ontario right now are either set by me or set by people that I consider friends at my debating club or know personally. And I think that's an advantage, right? Because to some extent, debating is an eternal activity in the sense that people will always argue about each other over different subjects. But it's also a local activity in the sense that what we choose to talk about and how we do it changes over time and is really specific to a region. And I understand the Ontario circuit very well, and I think I am probably uniquely equipped in some ways to help somebody who's trying to learn to debate in Ontario be able to do that. So that is my share of the seminar, but if there are questions now, I think now is a good time to take them.
Great. Thank you, Max.
Nope.
Let's see if there are any questions are still outstanding. I know Matt has already answered quite a few of them. Are there any questions unanswered? I don't think so, right? Matt, you got all of them.
Well done.
Matt, you're muted.
That's all right. I'm talking to myself. No,
Okay,
I
so-
do think we have them all. I was just reading them to myself.
So you got all
Yeah,
your
so
questions.
hopefully a couple of them will come in chat because I do expect we actually do have some more questions out there.
All right,
I
there's a
want to
que-
address quickly this conversation about finding partners, because this is quite crucial. Max can absolutely speak to this. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Finding partners as a high-level debater, finding people who are like a similar age to you. What kind of advice do you have on that, Max?
So the first piece of advice I have is don't force it if you don't have to, which is to say that, you know, at my school, just in dreary Edmonton, no real private scene to speak of. I just happened to have this girl in my class, Amara, who no longer debates, but was excellent, who just went to my junior high and went to my high school. And so we were just partnered forever. And she was the 11th best speaker in the country in her senior year. So, I mean, you know, if you get lucky, you get lucky. Just make things work within your school club. That is the easiest and most natural thing to do. Now, if you are not friends with people in your club, if you don't know everybody in your club, if your club maybe isn't the largest and you feel like maybe you're the person who cares the most about this activity in the club, or if your club is very advanced and you feel like nobody there wants to partner with you for competitive reasons, right? Those are all problems that people encounter. Then things become a bit more difficult. So I think the first and most important thing to do is you just have to be reaching out. And I think that there are so many opportunities, especially if you're getting coaching and you have a classroom of people who are around your skill level, to reach out to people in other schools, people you didn't know in your school before, and do things that are low stakes. So, you know, partner in a class for a class debate with somebody and see if you work well together. Or partner for a low stakes online tournament, so a tournament run by other high schoolers. Or do a spar. There are spar group chats that are easily accessible, that you can argue against other debaters in a low stakes, not that competitive environment. And this is a great way to build rapport with other people, because you have to remember other people are in the same shoes, right? Everybody is looking for a partner that's around their skill level, that adds something unique to the team, that's, you know, not miserable to work with. And if you're not miserable to work with and do bring something to the team and are interested in getting better, if you put yourself out there, I think you are more than likely to find somebody.
Good. Thank you for that, Max.
Great.
So one of the recommendations that I put down in chat, we've got this exciting program that we launched just a few months ago we have a debate club now. And the difference between the debate club and a class is that there's not a teacher in the room. You're not getting lectures. What it is it's a group of students. It is student led. The people essentially heading the debate club are level 5, level 6 students. They're very talented. They're very patient. They're very kind. They're cool. You get to go there. They put you into teams. They come up with spicy, fun motions every week. Or they'll grab like a train wreck motion from a recent tournament. If they just went to a tournament and they watched a bunch of people get destroyed by it, they think it's instructional. They bring that in there. We get some interesting motions in the debate club. So what I was mentioning in here is that it's really nice because you don't have to commit to a class. You don't have to commit to a tournament. You just show up for it. Henry, if you could talk a little bit about membership in the club, because I don't remember all the details of it off the top of my head. But yeah, it's a really good way to, as Max was saying, a low stakes tournament, something like that. Just kind of like put yourself out there, meet some people, get some experience talking to some others, and see if you can find that debate partner to go with to a couple tournaments, maybe for a couple years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, participating in the Leading Tomorrow Debate Club, it's a great way to first practice your debating skills, knowledge. You learn from your, weekly debate classes with your coaches or Matt or Max, right? And then you can practice those knowledge in the debate club. Sorry. The way to join it is pretty easy, pretty straightforward, and it's pretty cheap. I think it's about like $100-$200 for 1 year, and you can join it by signing up on the Linky portal, linky-online.com, and just fill a few buttons, click away. So yeah, straightforward. All
Yeah.
right.
Per
Okay.
year membership, they meet every week. It's like 40 sessions. It's like $5 a meeting. It's crazy. It's crazy the amount of value that thing is. I'm really excited about it. I just think, I don't know, I just think it's so accessible. It's also great because like young students, like our level 3s will get to hang out with the level 5s and get to sort of see what they do. And that's also just a really rewarding experience that's hard to get.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. How
So
can we improve? Go ahead, Henry.
I'm trying to read the question. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to read the question. Yeah. How can we improve our reasoning behind our points and arguments? Max, you want to lead this one?
Sure. So, I mean, I think this is a difficult question to answer in a seminar, right? Because there's not a factual answer. It's just an approach. But I think that the easy answer here is that experience is always the best teacher. So when you are making a point or an argument, I mean, there's no absolutely true argument or point, right? We're not using studies. We have no access to empirical reality. We just are convincing people with our words in a short span of time, like 5 minutes. And so the question is not usually, is an argument perfectly proven or not? Is it good enough to win a round or not? And so if it's good enough, what you should do is you should go up to whoever's judging your round, whether it's your coach, whether it's somebody at a tournament, and say, what did you like about this argument, and where could it have been better? And when you think a point wasn't well proven, so the judge says they didn't buy it to a full extent, where was it lacking? Common problems with an argument: not taking into account easy responses from the other side, not being comparative enough with what would exist on the other side of the motion. These issues are things you will hear from the people who are discrediting your points. And so if you notice that there are these consistent problems with argument construction, you can look to solve them yourself in prep. So, okay, I have an argument idea. Here's how I think it would work. Hold on a minute. Let me ask my checklist questions. Am I comparing this world, the argument that's working here, to how the argument would work for the other side? Am I making sure that there's no obvious error here that somebody could just point out into POI and would make my case look really silly? And when you start to do things like that, I think your points more often than not trend towards being good enough for the debates they're in.
Great. Thank you. Max, actually, I have a question for you. I normally have this see this question from maybe upper level class students, right? And sometimes the students hit their bottleneck. So when that happens, there's an argument between trying to improve your strategy and try to improve your knowledge base, right? When you hit that plateau, has that happened to you in your experience? And what would be your advice?
So I think that, firstly, for me, I think that in high school, I didn't plateau very much because I was starting from a level of so much easy improvement that I just didn't really have the place where you get so good that you don't know where to go from there. I think in university, that's much more of an experience I've had where you encounter a competition that suddenly knows a lot more about the world, that does all of the basic things just better because they're older and more experienced. That's a place where I found myself plateauing more. So I think the first thing to ask is there an obvious answer for the individual? So when you're getting into tournaments, is the reason you're learning because you get to the finance round and you're just lost in the weeds? If that's the case, then that's an area that you do need to learn more about, and all the strategy in the world is not going to help you. Or conversely, right, is the problem that you know a lot about the world, maybe you know too much, and you spend your speeches sort of ranting about facts rather than putting together a compelling case that will win you the round. So obviously feedback to some extent matters. But I would say that in general, and this is just a very general prescription, that knowledge matters less in debate in the way that debaters tend to think it does than commonly surmised. And the reason for that is most of the debate motions that we do, especially in a high school setting, have very short speaking times and have judges that aren't experts in the topics either. And that means that knowledge is important in the sense of having a basic understanding of how the world works, but the sort of specialized knowledge that higher level debaters tend to talk about, right? Having an econ PhD is not going to get you very far. And what I would say is strategy is the far more important consideration generally when you're plateauing, which is to say that debaters become so good at doing and executing on what they want to do. They can make an argument that is no obvious or basic flaws. They can give a response that's somewhat compelling. And they just keep kind of automatically spitting out these arguments and responses without a thought to how they fit into the round. So I think that developing strategic thinking not just about how do I do the things I want to do, but are the things I want to do the right things? Is my intuition leading me astray in some cases? That tends to be a greater source of plateaus. But that's just my experience.
All right. Thank you so much. I think if there are no more questions, and this is the end of the seminar, let's try to wrap this up. If there are...
I'd like to build a little on what Max just said for a minute or two. Okay, good. We've got the phone number down there in chat as well. So I mentioned in the chat, we have an email for people who are asking for additional classes. If there's something that we don't offer that you want, send us an email. Absolutely. We can't offer something that we don't know you want. Like sometimes we just guess. Sometimes we're like, do they want to learn about Dogecoin? Okay, we'll teach them about Dogecoin. But usually it's a response, right, to a request. To build on what Max was saying and to talk a little bit about that question about building your reasoning behind your arguments. The fact that you are debating against other people is very important to keep in mind at all times. You are never able to just deliver your argument into a sort of clean battlefield. There's other people trying to do things. And so you should be taking steps as a debater to deny them the ability to do the things that they want, to make it hard for them to do the things that they want, and to allow yourself to get to where you need to get to. Sometimes you'll recognize in a round that you and an opponent are both trying to achieve the same objective. You are both trying to convince this judge that doing X or not doing X will lead to more happiness for the person making the choice. And so you have to start on that as quickly as you can. You have to rush to that area and do it as fast as possible. When it comes to making sure your point is well reasoned and makes sense, here's a nice sort of starting technique if you're struggling with it. Take your logical framework, if I do this, then this will happen, and start trying to push other things into the front of the framework and see if stupid stuff comes out the other side. If you're making an argument that if we do this, it will lead to more money for everybody. That sounds like a good argument at first, but then if your opponent says, sure, but by that same reasoning, if we do this, it'll lead to more poison for everybody. You have to make sure that you tried your arguments in an adversarial way. You and your partner need to be challenging what you're doing, thinking about what your opponent is going to try to do, and trying harder to attack each other's points in prep. It's very essential that you're being as critical as you can before you bring those arguments to a debate round.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Matt. All right, I think let's wrap this up. I'd like to thank Matt, Max, and everybody still here. We had a some pretty interesting discussion. I think all of our teachers, including Valerie, have shared a lot of good information. If you guys have any further questions, feel free to reach out. Right, email. It's info@linkkey.com, or maybe call us, or maybe you can WeChat us, or come to see us. Right, we're always around in Mississauga, in North York, and hopefully to see you guys soon. All right, thank you so much, everyone, once again.
Thanks for coming out, everybody.
Yeah, have a good weekend. Good night.